Hello, I'd like to welcome you to the Past Business Analytics virtual chapter. My name is Melissa Demsak and I lead this chapter, but I do this with help with other folks like Paris Doshi, who's now helping with marketing and membership. This is our 17th meeting of the year. We try to meet at least once to twice a month, and we have a lot of great topics that will be coming up. So thank you so much also for filling out our polls today. It means a lot to the Microsoft folks that will be presenting today to understand the geography and the types of roles of the folks that are listening to these presentations. If you want to find out more about the chapter, you can follow us on Twitter on hashtag PASBAVC or go out to the website. Also, if you enjoyed today's presentation, make sure you go up on the PASS website and join the virtual chapter. This way, you're going to get notifications of any future meetings and also some other maybe resources from the presenters today. Also, PASS has a lot of different events going on, so visit their main page frequently for their many different types of virtual training. You can see here there's other BI virtual meetings coming up, virtualization and data architecture, so there's always something going on here. I want to also let you know that our next meeting will be on Monday, November 25th at 12 p.m. EST. It'll be with Kevin Goff on integrating reporting services with SharePoint. So come on back for another meeting and let your friends know about it. Today's meeting is really exciting for me. I attended the PASS Summit last month, and I was fortunate enough to attend the BI Power Hour, which was absolutely amazing with the demos that the Microsoft folks had. And from that, I was able to make connections and connect out with Matthew and Ofer for today's presentation. So it's going to be a great 90 minutes or 75 plus minutes session. So I hope you have your seatbelts fastened, have a good cup of coffee, soda, and are ready to go for this. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Matthew and let him tell him about himself and the Ofer who will be presenting. Cool. I'm now seeing Matthew's screen. Awesome.
And I've just introduced myself to my muted microphone as well, so the session is only going to go uphill from here. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone from around the world. My name is Matthew Roach. I am a Senior Program Manager on the SQL Server team here at Microsoft. I am here with Ofer Ashkenazi, who is a product planner also on my team. And the two of us are going to be presenting today about self-service information management as part of the Power BI for Office 365 service offering. I do want to stress right off the beginning that if you go today to powerbi.com, we are currently in public preview. You can enter your email address and sign up to get access to this preview. Everything that we're showing off today is available today. You can go in, you can kick the tires. I'm probably going to forget to mention that as I move in, so I definitely want to stress it here. I also want to say thank you very much to Melissa for making this happen. We did connect last month at the PASS Summit in Charlotte, and when we learned about the awesome work that she's doing here with the virtual chapter for business analytics, we really wanted to be involved because it's a way to get this story out to more people around the world. Not everyone has a chance to travel, so this is a way that we can have conversations beyond the conferences themselves. I do want to stress, however, that if you have the opportunity to do so, in addition to these online events, so the fact that we've got 1 to 2 events each month with a focus on business analytics, SQL Server, and business intelligence, there's also next year going to be a business analytics conference held in May in San Jose, California. Even though we haven't gotten confirmed yet, Ofer and I are both planning on being there. This is a real focus for us and our team, and if you enjoy what we're doing today and what Melissa is doing with this virtual chapter, block out these dates on your calendar, figure out how you can get there. Speaking as someone who used to be out in the industry as part of the SQL Server BI community, being able to attend those in-person events, there's nothing quite like the networking opportunities, both with fellow attendees and with the folks who are building the tools that you use every day. So, I'm done with the sales pitch. Let's actually jump in. So what we're discussing today is a set of capabilities inside of Power BI for Office 365. Since Power BI is still pretty new, I want to start off with what I think of as a review. For you, it may be a preview, but essentially it's an all-up overview of the Power BI for Office 365 offering. And we've got two primary components or sets of components inside the Power BI offering. I'm going to start on the left-hand side and work my way over. But basically, Power BI is delivered through both a set of add-ins and capabilities inside of Microsoft Excel and a set of cloud services that are delivered through Office 365. One of the most common questions that we get is, do I need to be an Office 365 customer in order to use Power BI? The short answer is yes. Since we're delivering it through Office 365, it comes as part of an Office 365 subscription. The second most common question that we get tends to be, wait a minute, we don't have to put our data in the cloud, do we? And the answer here is no. For all of the demonstrations that we're going through today and the scenarios that we're looking at, we're focusing on letting the data live where it currently lives. The fact that we have our user experience being driven through Excel gives us the ability to have that familiar experience in the on-prem analytics client connecting to data sources that are on-prem, such as your OLTP or data mart or data warehouse systems, or connecting to data that's in the cloud as well, be it Windows, Azure, or a managed cloud service, or data that we're pulling in from public or third-party data sources as well. But the data doesn't need to be moved into the cloud for any of these scenarios to light up. From an Excel experience perspective, we have three primary experiences inside of Excel. For data discovery, we have a new tool that is called Power Query. And for those of you who have seen Power Query before, be aware that we have our November update that is coming out today. The functionality that you'll be seeing inside both my demos and Ofer's demos are going to show some refinements of this experience and a really streamlined UX beyond what we were able to show off last month. So hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of that. But the primary goal of Power Query is to ensure that you can get whatever data you want, regardless of the source, regardless of the shape that it's in, to land it in Excel and in the Excel data model easily without requiring IT involvement, so that you can do analysis, visualization, and other exploration of that data. Beyond that, from an information management and data stewardship perspective, the queries that you create in Power Query are also shareable resources. Essentially, we're allowing a data steward or business user to connect to data, whether it's in a database, a text file, a website, a web service, but to connect to that data, do whatever manipulation they need, things that previously you might need to rely on your IT team or your SSIS developer to do that transformation. And as a business user, you can manipulate the data, reshape that data, filter the data, bring multiple data sets together, and do all of this without requiring IT involvement. Once it's in Excel, once it's in that Power Pivot data model inside of Excel, you can then do analysis on it using the pivot table and pivot chart capabilities that have been included with Power Pivot since 2010. You can also do visualization using both Power View, which is a self-service reporting tool introduced in Excel 2013 and enhanced for Power BI, but also with a new Power Map tool, which allows interactive geographic visualization and exploration of data. And I believe that one of the stories that Ofer has lined up today is really going to showcase the capabilities of Power View as well. Or Power Map. Thank you very much, Ofer, for the correction there. So beyond this, we have capabilities in Office 365 which enable the functionality in Excel. Most of the user experience is going to live inside of Excel. We hear from people, whether they're analysts or developers or business decision makers, you know, my people work in Excel, my people live in Excel. This is where they want to work with data, so we're giving them those tools, but we're backing it up with the power of the cloud. From a data discovery and sharing perspective, we have online search capabilities inside of Power Query to go out and search for public data sets, for premium data sets, for corporate data sets. But this search is backed by a cloud service known as the Power BI Data Catalog, which includes a search crawler, a search index, and a whole set of back-end functionality, essentially to ensure that whenever your users go in and search for data, they're going to find the most relevant, most appropriate data for their search term, and they can land that data directly into the data model in Excel regardless of the source. We also have data exploration and sharing capabilities delivered through the Power BI sites. This is a new experience on top of SharePoint Online, which will allow business users to share their Excel workbooks, including the data models and including the Power View reports, and to have that surfaced in an easy-to-navigate way with up-to-date thumbnails showing real-time data based on the data that's inside the workbooks, not just a generic view, essentially giving a great landing page and dashboard. We've also, through the SharePoint Online experience for Power View, we are delivering HTML5 capabilities, so we've got cross-browser support in there as well, and we're delivering a Windows 8 and Windows RT mobile application so that those workbooks that you've exposed or published rather through these Power BI sites, you can then access them on your mobile device wherever you are. And the final thing, sort of saving perhaps not the best for last, but sharing one of the most breakthrough capabilities for last. We have a brand new service that is called Power BI Q&A, which allows for real-time interactive English language data discovery and exploration on top of these workbooks. So once you have uploaded a workbook into your Power BI site in SharePoint Online, once you enable that for Q&A, your business users can go into a single page, they've got a single text box, and they can start typing in a phrase such as, you know, customers by city or sales by product over time, and they'll automatically receive both the data and the most appropriate visualization of that data without their needing to know anything about reporting or querying or the like. This functionality online today, so we've got these capabilities. Just go to powerbi.com and sign up for that preview. And for the Excel add-ins, even though there are some scenarios that only light up with the Office 365 service in the back end, you can download Power Query and Power Map today even without being in the preview. So with no further ado, I would like to hand things over to Ofer. So let me make him the presenter here, and Ofer is going to take off and do a demo that shows an end-to-end story highlighting a lot of these capabilities. Let me just share my screen. Yep, we're good.
Okay, so before I start with the demo, just to first of all, hello everybody. My name is Ofer Ashkenazi. I'm the product planner, and as a product planner, I'm in charge of providing market research, validating market opportunities, and doing customer research for our team. But my unofficial role is to keep Matthew in check. and sometimes summarize a whole lot of words that he has to say. He's very excited about this product, as I am, but I'm trying to abbreviate and make it briefer. So just to the gist of this slide, on the left-hand side in green, you're seeing the authoring experience, all the tools, all the components about authoring your reports, your models, your queries. It's an authoring experience and also consumption experience in Excel. In order to experience this, all you need is Excel 2013 Pro Plus, and you can get all the tools, even the ones that do not come in, such as built-in, such as Power Map and Power Query. You can download the add-in, and you can start working with them immediately. For the right-hand side, the one in orange, that's the consumption experience that is available only through a subscription in Office 365. And as Matthew said, you can sign up today for the preview. But if you have Office on the desktop, Pro Plus with 2013 Pro Plus, you can experience the authoring capabilities as well as the consumption on Excel. And as Matthew correctly said, there are some experiences within those tools that depend on your subscription, and we'll actually highlight those. So you'll have to have subscription for Power BI for that. So without further ado, I think we've said enough. Let's jump into the demo. So what we'll be doing actually is we'll be demoing the Power Query as the discovery and meshing up together multiple data sources, doing some shaping of the data, entering some metadata, and then we'll show the sharing experience, sharing against that data catalog that Matthew was talking about. So without further ado, let me start my Excel. And the first thing that I'll do in Excel is I'm going to use a Power Query, but as a data steward. This is a concept that you'll see us talking about further on. But the data steward is the person in the team with enough who is the SME, the subject matter expert for the data. He knows where the data comes from, how it should be used. He's in charge of ensuring the integrity and the quality of the data. And in short, he knows where to find the right data and how to treat it. So in our case, we're talking about Northwind Airlines. Northwind Airlines has a data steward. His name is very aptly Stewart. And Stewart wants to make some data sources available for the rest of his constituents. So he's going to use direct access from Power Query. You can see here from web, you can see from file. There are all sorts of options here. From database, he's going to pick the from other sources. And he's actually going to pick a big data source, which is HD Insights. It's a Hadoop implementation on Azure. It might as well have picked up a Hadoop implementation on-prem. In our case, we were picking this one because it was easier for us to demo it, but definitely the data could be on-prem. So it's going to pick the account HD Insight, in this case, HD Insight. The key for that account has already been entered into the system. Actually, not. Okay. So let me put it in. Yep. So let me quickly put that one in. So now I'm connecting to an HD Insights. That's not what I was expecting. Let me try it again. I might have misspelled it. Just a second. So I'm connecting to an Azure HD Insight. The account name, let me pick it up from here. This is the account name. And it should pick the key because I've used it a couple of times already. There we go. Sorry about that. So now we're picking, in HD Insight, we're picking the container of a bunch of files here. It's called scenarios in this case. And it provides us a view of over the HD Insights, which is the HDFS file system. And in this case, Stuart wants to make a weather data about weather, that's visibility and wind speed, make it available for the rest of the folks in the company, because not everybody is aware of this data, knows how to access this Hadoop implementation. So he picks that particular instance of text file. He knows that this is a text file, and he knows it's actually delimited by a comma, so he chooses to split it. So what I'm doing right now is using Power Query to create a bunch of steps of transformation steps and shaping steps on the raw data. As you can see, this is text data, comma delimited, that sits in Hadoop implementation on Azure. And the first thing he would do, he would put the station, the column names, so that people have the right metadata. So this is a station ID, the weather station ID. The next one you can guess is the date, and then we have the visibility. Next we have the wind speed. And here you can guess this is the latitude and the longitude of the weather station. So with that, all the relevant field names were entered. Stuart can also, to make the query easy to find, use here a query name and description. In this case, it's 2012 US weather data. And if he wants to add some description, actually we'll do this later on. So now the easiest thing to do is simply apply the changes, and let's see the data coming into Excel. We're talking here about roughly 500,000 of records coming in from our Hadoop implementation. In this case it was Azure, but as I said before, it could come from any source. You saw before that we are actually able to connect to multiple relational data sources, including Oracle and SQL Server and DB2 and so forth. And we could connect to non-relational data sources. We could even connect to flat files. We connect to web data sources where we can scrape HTML tables and so forth. We can connect to OData sources. So basically, it's right now we're connecting to about 22 different data sources, and we're going to expand this list.
So just to reinforce what Ofer has done here, essentially without using any technical tools, so without engaging the IT department or using any specialized tools, Ofer, as a data steward, has gone in, connected to a data source that wouldn't be usable by a standard end user. As a data steward, Stuart tends to be a little bit more technical and a little bit more capable, but he's a business user, not an IT user, and he's been able to go in and go from a pretty raw source data to create a documented and self-explanatory table of data which he can then share with others.
So notice also I can see how many rows were loaded, I can see whether I had any errors and so forth. So now I choose to share the query. Notice I'm not sharing the copy, I'm sharing the query. When I'm sharing the query, and that's, in order to do this, I need to be subscribed to and connected to the Power BI for Office 365 subscription. So here, let me, I see I had a spelling mistake here, of course, so let me correct that one. And let me enter some more descriptive information here. Let me say this is actually visibility and wind speed by station. Okay, this is the weather station. And you could see, actually, anybody who would find this query could see where it's coming from, what's the original data source. I can decide to share it with my entire organization or to share it with specific people. This is just like picking names from Active Directory or email in Outlook and so forth. And you can provide even documentation, either video or some document that describes further this data source and the query. and you can provide a preview for the data. You can choose not to provide a preview. It's useful to show people how the preview looks like. So now I'm sharing a copy of this query with the rest of the users in my organization. We'll do the same thing with another data set that Stuart thinks is also relevant from the same source. I'm actually going to go into the same source, let's see if I can type correctly now, the same account name, so I'm connecting to the same place as before. This time I'm picking another data source, which is the arrival delays. So here it is, arrival delays, a data source from Hadoop implementation on Azure HD Insight. You'll see it's similarly delimited file by comma. So I'm choosing again to split it by comma. And this time it's going to be date. This is the airport arrival. This is the airport code. This one is the arrival delay minutes. So let me call it delay minutes. And the next one is delay count. So this is really a statistic. So for each day, for each airport in the US, I have the arrival delay minutes and the arrival delay count for that day. And I'm going to name this query US airports arrival delays. And again, you can see that my steps were recorded over here. If something is wrong in one of those steps, I could go back and correct it. I can test and figure out whether I did them correctly and so forth. So with that, I'm good. I'm saying apply, bring back here. In this case, we're going to have about almost 90,000 records coming out. As you can see, it was much faster coming up from again the same source, a different file in that source. And again, I'm going to share this particular one. Let me just add another name. Let's call it PASS BA virtual chapter, all acronyms, right? So again, I'm sharing this copy. And now Stuart has finished his role in this demo. So he's gone and annotated, put some metadata, and published two data sources as queries. The queries actually provide both metadata and do some basic transformation of the data source. So Stuart can look at his shared queries. Excuse me, I should go to Power Query, and I can see all my shared queries over here. On the right-hand side, you'll see that this is the latest one that I just shared and the one before. And you can see I've done this demo quite many times and I haven't deleted my previous shares. So basically we're going to use these two. So now Stuart is going to leave the scene. I'm not saving anything. I'm starting from scratch with a new hat on. And the new hat is going to be the hat of the analyst, Anna, also an app name. So Anna, the data analyst, has been charged with providing some sort of correlation, providing some sort of evidence of correlating or figuring out what causes delays, arrival delays for Northwind. And she has a hunch that maybe weather has something to do with it. But first of all, she needs to find whether there's any arrival delays data for the company. So she just put arrival delay in the query. As you can see, I'm using the search mechanism. And here the search can be qualified. I can only search from data sources from my organization or public data sources. In this case, I found everything there. I could say, bring me only data sources from my organization. And here you're seeing some previous data sources. I can actually go and find exactly the one that I shared here. It doesn't really matter here, but just for the sake of showing you, that particular thing, you can see that I have here numerous implementation of that particular query that I could choose from. So for the purpose of our demo, it doesn't really matter. So basically, I'm choosing some arrival delays, and I have here also the information about that particular data source. Let me pick this one. So when I pick that one, that query gets executed again. So if that would be a data source on-prem, I would be connecting from my desktop to that data source on-prem. In this case, I'm connecting again to that cloud HD Insight, that's Hadoop implementation on the cloud on Azure. And this is the data that you've seen the data steward creating that query. I'm going to, as Anna, I'm going to actually have this data source loaded into the data model. So I want to load it into the data model because I'm going to use later on Power Map. And Power Map actually grabs its data from the data model. So I want to load it into the data model. Now Anna wants to find the other data source. So she goes back into online search, and this time she looks for U.S. weather data. And she finds, again, U.S. weather data. Here is the one that I just shared. As you can see, the time here. It's really literally the one that I just shared. So she wants to pick this one. She can see here the preview, as you can see, because I chose to provide a preview. When she clicks on the columns, there's a focus on the columns. You can see when it was last updated, by whom, which are the data sources.
So I'd like to jump in here as well. While Ofer has been talking and going through this demo, I actually used one of the tools that we'll be seeing in a few minutes during my demo later on to provide some additional business metadata around this data source. If you are paying close attention, you notice that the last time that this information was displayed, instead of having a nice business-friendly name like weather analysis scenario data, what was actually displayed there was the path to that Hadoop cluster, the HD Insight cluster. What Ofer has been doing in his role as steward has essentially been providing both the queries themselves, these instructions on how to get the data and shape the data, but also descriptive metadata. So you can see the title and the description that's up there as well as the preview. But even though Ofer hasn't shown it off yet, he or other data stewards inside the organization can also provide this business-friendly descriptive metadata about the data sources themselves. And when the other business users, when the analysts or the information workers are discovering the data and the queries and the data sources, they'll have the information that they need to understand what they're seeing in their own terms.
So we're talking here about the data source, and you can see the file name plus the sort of URI or connect string to that particular data source. So now I'm choosing to add this particular data source into the spreadsheet. Similarly, I'll probably need to upload it into the data model so that Power Map can use it. Actually, Anna looks at it again, and she figures out that here she doesn't have the longitude latitude like she does for the weather data. This might be a problem because she wants to represent the data on a map in order to show some correlation between the weather data and the arrival delays. So what she does is she looks for some information to augment the arrival delays with the geolocation of the airport. And she remembers that she has a file on her desktop, and that particular file is an Excel file that she's going to access now. Notice that she's not importing the data directly into Excel. What she's doing is she's running a query against this Excel file called airports. And this time, she's picking the first sheet in that Excel file. And now, she's represented with the content of that particular sheet. She's going to do some manipulation here as well. She's going to use the first row's headers, promoting the first row. And now from this particular file, all she needs is the longitude, latitude, and airport. So she picked just these last three columns. She removes the rest of the columns from her query. So she's left only with these two. These two need to be numbers. So she picks, you can see here the data type. She could either pick the data type from here or right click and change the type to a number. And now she's done. She can again give this a name. This is airports. For her purposes, this is airport locations. So now we'll wait until this data lands on our spreadsheet. And in fact, we have three different data sets. We've got the arrival delays, we've got the weather data, and we've got the airport locations. For the weather data, we'll upload it as well into, let me do that quickly, upload it into the data model. So now Anna realizes that she needs to connect somehow or merge the data of the arrival delays with the data that contains the geographical locations, geolocations of the airports. So she picks the function of merging. So she merges this particular data set of the results of the query with the airport locations. The way she's going to do it, she's going to match by airport. And she's only going to include matching rows. Of course, now what happens is I picked the wrong one, right? So I need to pick the airport. You can see how this is indicating exactly what's going to happen to me. So now I know that I have about 85,000 records that will be matched. That's good enough for me. I'm picking these two, creating the merged query out of these two data sets that come as a result of two other queries. That particular query I'm going to call airport arrival delays by location. And here I'm going to rename this new column that actually represents the merged table. I'm going to rename it to airport. And I'm going to expand it. Sorry, airport exists, of course. This is actually the location. Let me call it location. And I'm actually going to expand that particular table and only bring the columns that I need, which are the longitude and latitude, because airport code is already there. And I'm ending up with exactly what I need. This is the joined record set. I'm going to load this also into the data model. Going to run the query, and now if Anna goes into Power Pivot, she's actually going to find this time it's actually 4 different data sets, so she might not need the intermediate data sets. She's going into Manage in Power Pivot, so she can find actually the 3 data sets. She doesn't need the first one because the first one, remember, does not contain the geolocations, the latitude, latitude. So she deletes this one. She's left just with the 2 data sets that she wants to correlate their data, the weather data and the airport arrival delays by location. Okay, so these are the 2. So now what Anna wants to do is to use PowerMap. Let me go into PowerMap this time. In the Insert menu, PowerMap, launch PowerMap. PowerMap would now look at the data sets that have been loaded into the BI model, the Power Pivot model here, and allow me to visualize these using Bing mapping capabilities, and it's actually a 3D rendition of the Earth. It's pretty interesting for those of you who haven't seen it. So as you can see here, I have a very nice representation of the Earth. I can pick, there are two layers that actually many layers that I could create here. I'm going to create the first layer based on the weather data. So I'm picking latitude and longitude. Automatically, Power Map figures out those locations on the map, gave me some representation. So I'm continuing to say I want to use the wind speed. Anna has a hunch that maybe the wind speed is more relevant than visibility, of course, when you're driving with instruments and so forth. But anyway, she says, okay, let me pick this. She wants to show each individual value, no aggregation per day, and she wants to have some sort of, so instead of column, she figures out heat map would probably be better, but she wants to do it by date. She's also dragging the date dimension into the, and now you can see that it is processing. Oops, that's not what I meant. So you can see that it is processing all those records and making sure that we can actually get a nice visualization of which is a time series of this geospatial data, so we can see heat map of how the different wind speeds is accelerating. So the red indicating higher wind speed, the blue indicating lower wind speed throughout the different weather stations that we have represented here in the data. So now the second layer that we'll be adding, here, we'll take the arrival delays, and again we're going to use latitude and longitude. Remember, those were the merged data sets, or fields coming from the merged data set. And we're going to pick, this time she's going to pick the delay minutes. And she's going to pick column. Again, she doesn't need to pick the sum, but she wants a no aggregation. She wants to show it by day, and she wants the date to be the time series dimension. Again, Power Map is processing much faster because much less data here. And now she can see both of these together in the map. So let me do a quick animation here to figure out whether I can see some patterns. So you can see in San Francisco, for example, let me add the map labels here. We can see in San Francisco, for example, that as the wind picks up and more red is showing, you have higher columns representing the arrival delay in minutes. So in Power Map, you can explore different portions of the map, look at different areas, figure out whether your hunch is the right one. You can do all sorts of nice things in Power Map. We're not gonna spend time because this is not the topic of our presentation today. But just figure out how quickly it was for Anna, with the help of the data stewards who actually published some very interesting big data sources for her to explore. And Anna was able to validate her hunch and visualize lots of data, do some joins, do some reshaping, and then get to the right insight that she wanted to have.
Yeah, and speaking as someone who spent quite a few years out in the field doing data warehousing and BI consulting, the thing that really strikes me about this scenario that Ofer has just walked through is that we've taken data from heterogeneous data sources. Some of it's in the cloud, some of it's on-prem. None of it is what you would think of as truly structured data, so there's not a relational database involved here. And without using any specialized tools, only using the capabilities that are in Excel, we have created data sets. We've shared the information about those data sets so that business users can find them. We've searched, we've discovered them, and as a business user, we have found the data sets, we have merged them together. Imagine the work that would be involved to do this in integration services or a similar ETL tool. We've landed them into the data model, and then we've done an interactive visualization on top of them, all without requiring IT involvement. So even though in a lot of scenarios or some scenarios, it may be the IT team that is going out and publishing their data sources so that they're easily discoverable, Once the information about these queries is in the data catalog, any business user can find them, or any business user that the queries have been shared with can find them, and then connect to those data sources that they have permissions to access and do their analysis to go beyond the corporate BI solution. You know, there's still going to be the canned reports and the supported official data warehouse and the models on top of that. But when the business needs to go beyond this, there are now tools that make this perhaps not trivial, but certainly accessible.
So with that, let's continue and talk about what we've seen. So it's sort of behind the scenes of what we've seen here. So first of all, let's talk about who are the target audience and what sort of challenges that we're trying to solve with this kind of solution. So I'm really focusing on what we call the self-service information management, which is really Power Query powered by the data catalog with the search experience, with the ability to publish to the data catalog, and that's the gist of what I'm talking about here. So we're really focusing on information workers, the business users, trying to figure out whether we can ease their pain of finding the right data, preparing that data, and leave them more time to actually do the analysis and get to the insights. Then it was also about IT. IT, we know, gets hammered. They're not able to respond fast enough to requests from the business for more data. They're still trying to secure and govern the data use and its access. So they're in a hot spot. So making IT able to enable their business users and still retain some visibility and control on what's going on, that was an important aspect of what we were trying to do here. And last but not least, we were trying to bring some trust in information, because we know that as people pick up data sources that are disconnected, that are not connected to the sources anymore, and you lose the ability to find where the data came from, this actually inhibits the business, because people then start arguing, is my information the right one, or is yours the right one? And so basically we're saying, let's target these personas, the information workers and the IT pros. We're looking really in mid-sized to very large organizations where this kind of problem is more prevalent. But let's add in the data stewards as the bridge between the information workers, the business analysts, and the IT pros. And so just as a quote from Gardner here, only the business users that are close to the content can evaluate information in its business context. We were too much relying on IT to do this job, but we should actually try to delegate as much as possible to the information workers, to the data stewards, and we're hoping that we're bringing new tools in order to make this happen.
Yeah, and for this problem, when we talk to information workers, we talk to the business users that are out there, the pain that we hear and the stories that we hear basically boil down to IT can't keep up with my requests for information. I need timely, relevant data to make my business decisions, and IT is supposed to give this to me, but most of the time when I have a request, I need the data today or tomorrow, and they tell me it's 6 weeks or 6 months. When we talk to IT, we hear the requests from the business are accelerating. We can't keep up. We're being asked to do more with less, but in the end, we just end up doing less. And even when IT can deliver the data that business asks for, you know, very often something is lost in translation, and business users have learned over the years that when IT gives them something, they really need to look pretty closely at the data to make sure that it's what they need. And by letting business solve that gap, supported and enabled by IT, but it's business users providing information and sharing it with business users, we're addressing all three aspects of this problem.
So now let's open up the hood. Let's figure out what's under the hood. So we talked about the data catalog. That's actually the implementation in the cloud. So that's connected to the Office 365 subscription of Power BI. And it allows you to store, and it also processes the metadata about data sources, users, relationship with them, and it provides the functionality for search that you just saw from Power Query across those multiple sources. So you don't care where the data is, as long as it's been registered or published, a pointer to that data was published into the Power Query, into the data catalog, then we can find it. Now, data search is an option. So if folks are not really comfortable with uploading the index of the data into this data catalog in the cloud, they can turn this off. Actually, they have to turn it on. And it allows you to also connect directly to the data source. Again, the data source can stay on-prem, so it connects on the fly and provide this data integration layer when, for example, you need to update a search or update some previews and so forth. So now let me show you what are the rest of the components that we've actually used in the previous demo. So we have Power Query, which is an add-in for Excel. Works with, by the way, both Excel 2010 and 2013, but the better experience is, of course, with 2013, where the data model is already part of Excel. It is really for any information workers, not necessarily the data analysts, to be able to discover some data and do some basic filtering and reshaping. But for the data analysts, the ones that would be creating the more sophisticated queries, and for data stewards, it allows them to define those repeatable data queries that do some significant data manipulation, data shaping, data transformation, and provide maybe metadata on top of unstructured or semi-structured data. And they can then use it to publish and annotate those queries, just as I did in the demo as data steward. So now we have another component that Matthew is going to show later, because we also want Matthew to do some demos, which is the data management portal, where the data stewards, or actually any query author, can manage those shared queries, can publish data sources, can add annotations, can see some data telemetry, and gain insights on data lineage and where the data came from. And last but not least, we have the admin center for IT administrator to really monitor and actually first set up and provision the system in the cloud, and manage the data integration layer that we'll talk about in a second further. Okay, so what are the two options of publishing into this data catalog? So the data catalog, and you'll see in the next slide as well, is actually federating. First of all, on the upper left side, you see a catalog of public data. We publish all sorts of data sources. We have about 1.5 million tables from Wikipedia, and we have thousands of tables from data.gov and so forth. We also have other sources that we are going to put in through this public data catalog. This public data catalog is federated to any corporate data catalog. Once you provision for your organization your Power BI for Office 365, you get your own corporate, but all the data that is within the public data catalog is also delegated for search by users using the corporate catalog. So now when the user is connected to the subscription, to the service, they can either publish through Power Query, as we've seen, or publish through the admin center. The admin center also allows typically IT, but also the more sophisticated, I guess, data steward, allow them to publish data sources, whether they are sitting on the cloud or on-prem, data sources that belong to the corporate. And the users will connect directly to the data sources that were published to the data catalog. So think about the data catalog as just holding the pointers plus the definitions of the query, but not necessarily the data itself, the full data, maybe just a preview of the data if you wish to. So now let's see how this whole system, that we call it the information management ecosystem, how does it operate? So we have, again, on the left-hand side, we have on top, we have the words data published to the public catalog. That's something we do in our team. On the bottom right-hand side, you see the organization's data, whether it resides in the cloud or on-prem, whether it's big data, unstructured data, semi-structured data, or relational data, or even further on, we'll see more data sources coming in. And then you see a community of different user roles. On the right-hand side, you see the information workers that are really our main target audience. We want both the consumers and producers of data queries to be part of the system. We want, of course, the data stewards and the IT admin to be involved. So it starts with, so I'm going to show you a series of animation that shows how we envision the system working. So it starts with the IT admin provisioning and configuring the corporate tenant, the data catalog, and all the rest of the infrastructure in the cloud that is needed for the solution. And of course, the public tenant is federated automatically to that corporate tenant. The IT admin would also set up and configure an data integration layer, which includes an agent on each server where it makes sense, and that agent will allow data and metadata to flow to the Power BI implementation. It is used both for updating the data catalog, but also in order to refresh workbooks that are shared through the Power BI sites. The Power BI sites contains workbooks that you can decide whether you want to refresh the data on demand or schedule and have the data refreshed periodically. So that same integration layer allows you to do that. The data stewards, as we said before, can use either that mechanism through the IT admin and publish directly data sources, not the queries, just connection to the data sources. They can set all sorts of security access control mechanism on top of these. But they can also use the Power Query, and just as we saw, we can publish a more useful query that already connects and merges different data sources together, publish those queries into the data catalog. Now the queries retain the reference to the original data sources. So now when end users, let's start with the information consumers, go and search through the Power Query mechanism, they search, they find the right query, that query within their Excel spreadsheet gets executed, they connect to the data sources. This whole thing, once the discovery was made of the query, the execution and the data consumption is actually done on-prem within their Excel spreadsheets. And then they can, if they're data analysts, and create some sophisticated or more useful queries that can be shared by others, they'll probably do some more refinements, annotation, and so forth. They'll publish back. We hope that not just the data stewards, but the data analysts will also publish some interesting queries. The data stewards will see, using the same search mechanism, will see the same data queries that were published by the data analysts, can add more annotation, can decide maybe something was wrong and they need to take it off and so forth. So they'll have some oversight over the system because they'll have a special role as data stewards in the system. But also, and very important, is that the system will provide telemetry and data usage. So through the data management portal that Matthew will show quickly, we'll see both data telemetry on how data is being used by users throughout the system, and we'll see telemetry for the IT admin, for the IT pros, on how the whole system is functioning, what's the health of the system, and so forth. So we hope that by making sure that these different persona across boundaries of the organizations can collaborate seamlessly through this system, we will see a much more productive, much more virtuous cycle, if you will, of the data value chain, where the more data is published into the system, the more useful it becomes.
Yeah, and I think the two phrases that I love here are both virtuous cycle, and I'm going to stress this more later on, so I'm not going to drill into it right now, but that data value chain, essentially at each step along the way, different users are able to contribute value into the business and build on what the other users have done. A data steward or an IT pro can share a data set. Another data steward or information worker can take that and mash it up with another one, adding value, focusing it on specific business scenarios. Even though we're not going to be demonstrating this today because it gets more into the BI side rather than the information management side, we can also share the full workbooks up into those SharePoint Online Power BI sites. But each step along the way, people have the opportunity to take what has been done before them, either by IT or by the business, and work with it and reuse it and enhance it and share it so that each step along the way there's more and more value being added.
So I think this is where we switch.
Yep. Do you want to make me a presenter again?
If I have to.
Yeah, it'll work.
There we go.
Alrighty, so let me switch over here. So I've got the con now. This is Matthew again. I do want to stress one thing as well, or mention one thing as well, that Melissa has mentioned to me that we have some questions that have been coming in from attendees. When we get to the end of the session, Melissa is going to present those questions to us, and Ofer and I will spend whatever time is necessary to do that Q&A. So please keep the questions coming. We appreciate your patience. So to sort of reframe or to summarize what Ofer has presented here, we're focusing on information workers, data stewards, and IT professionals trying to ease the pain points that they feel in today's complex and accelerating information management environment. We want to give information workers a way to easily find relevant data, to understand what they're getting, and to enrich and reshape and to reshare, if necessary, that data. We want to enable data stewards to improve the quality of that data, to make it more discoverable, to make it more useful. And I think that this is perhaps the most important thing here, at least in my mind, is to promote the correct usage of that data. Historically, it's been very difficult to share the context or the purpose of data alongside the data. The fact that when we share a data set, when we're sharing a query inside of Power Query, that we can provide a business-friendly name, a business-friendly description. We can rename all of the columns and have that contextual information on the inside, but at the same time we can share documentation of arbitrary complexity or completeness so that anyone who finds the data, they're finding all of this descriptive information that helps them understand the processes in which the data is designed to be used, how it should be used, or perhaps even more importantly, how it should not be used. And for the IT pros, one of the things that we're trying to do is to make the IT job easier. The two ways that we do that is both enabling the business, we're enabling the information workers and the data stewards to do more without overt or explicit IT involvement, but at the same time, we are giving the IT pros control and management oversight where they need it. Obviously the IT team wants business to be able to do more on their own, but they don't want business to be making a mess that IT will then have to clean up after the fact. So it's a balancing act at both sides. Now, inside the Power BI experience, we have an experience that we call the data stewardship experience, which is a lot of what Ofer has shown off in the creation, annotation, and management of queries inside of Power Query. I'm going to step back a little bit and introduce our data steward persona and take a look at how both we believe data stewards and data stewardship teams will be using Power BI and how we're seeing some of our early adopters using it already. So we're not going to try to speak to everything that's on the slide. You guys will have the session recording afterwards. You can read all the text if you want to. But the key thing is when we're building features, we're building new experiences, we have a persona. So we have this archetypal description of a character. We'll have a name, we'll have a picture, we'll often have a resume or things like that. But essentially, whenever we're either writing a spec or writing the code, we're always coming back and looking at this persona description to say, how is Stuart, in this case, the data steward, going to be using this particular tool? And being a Lord of the Rings fan, I had actually argued for the steward persona name to be Denethor, and it was amazing for all of the geeks that we have here at Microsoft, how few people agreed with me or supported on this. I think Ofer was the only other one that said, yes, that would be a good idea. And he only said that it would be a good idea in my imagination, I'm afraid. So the data steward, the key thing here, he's in the business. This is a a growing or emerging role for a lot of the companies that we talk to, even big companies that have really invested in information management and understand the value of their data. They don't have a formal role of the data steward. It's often that the data steward is found through his accountabilities or through the work that he already does. One of my best personal stories is working with a customer that was in the process of setting up a data stewardship team. They basically, realized we need to be more formal and more deliberate about this, and they had a lot of their business leads. So, people whose job titles were business analyst or senior financial analyst, or things along these lines. People with strong business skills around the business processes and the data that they support, even though they're not people who are going to be out there writing complex SQL scripts very often, if at all. But in this meeting, the person running it said, all right, so close your eyes and picture this. The VP that you report to needs a report on business opportunities on his desk at the end of the day. It's your responsibility to find the data, build the report, make sure that it's correct, and get it onto his desk before close of business. Who do you go to find the data and to validate it? That person, regardless of what their job title is, that person is the data steward for this business area. Now open your eyes and look around you. Who is the data steward? And there was this one guy who'd been in the finance department for 10 or 15 years, and he sort of put his head in his hands, and he said, oh, no, I'm the data steward. And he didn't actually say, oh, no, but this is a PG-rated presentation, so we'll keep the language clean. But we identify the data steward by the tasks and the accountabilities that he has. It's still pretty rare to find companies where data steward is a formal job title. We have some inside of Microsoft. We have some with some of the other larger companies that we work with. But this is the person who's responsible for making sure that the data that the business needs is available, that it is consistent, and that it is correct. Microsoft offers data curation tools such as master data services and data quality services that focus on making sure that the data values themselves are correct and cleaned and managed. Power BI, our focus is more on the metadata curation to enable both data discovery and ensuring the proper usage of the data. So inside this data stewardship experience, we have some upfront tasks that take place. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see that we have Patrick doing some things, such as setting up the Office 365 tenant, assigning membership to specific roles to give permissions, and to configure those on-prem data management gateways that Ofer looked at quickly on one of his diagram slides, to make on-prem data accessible to workbooks that have been shared in the cloud, as well Patrick, our IT pro persona, doing monitoring for usage of the system, identifying problems so he can keep his hands on things. But the majority of the data stewardship experience takes place once this one-time setup is done and the ongoing IT management is going on in the background. Stuart, our data steward, and Anna, our analyst, had a virtuous cycle where Stuart is going to start off up at the top identifying the needs for data curation. Very often this is going to be an ad hoc process where Stuart says, I know that there is a merger going on or an acquisition or some type of ongoing business process, and this is the data that will need to be available. Or he could also say, 3 times this week I've had people knocking on my door asking me questions about this particular business process. This is the data that they need, and I'm going to make it available to the business so that people stop knocking on my door. So Stuart identifies the need. He then creates queries, so he pulls in data from whatever sources are necessary, and he then shares those queries. So he annotates them, providing the business documentation, shares them out into the data catalog, and makes the queries visible to users inside the business. Now, as part of her work, Anna, she's the person who needs this data. She goes into Power Query. She searches for it. She identifies, yes, this is what I need. So she consumes that query, lands it into her Power Pivot data model inside of Excel. She creates the Power View reports, the Power Map maps. Maybe she creates her own Power Query queries on top of it. But she does the analytic work that she needs, building on what Stewart has created to deliver the reports or the presentations or the awareness into the business that is her focus, while at the same time, Stewart is then looking at the usage KPIs to see who's searching for my queries, which queries are getting the most use, what's going on, who are the most, the most prolific users, to get this information, the telemetry information back out of the system. And using that, Stewart can then have more insight to say, this is the next step. Maybe I need to update this query or create a new version of it with more data or something that is filtered to be more precise or more focused. Or he may see that, well, people aren't using the queries that I have previously published. I need to work on to another area of the business. But each step along the way, the work that one person is doing is enabling the work of the others downstream. So let me move out of PowerPoint and step back into Power Query and our web experience. So let me come down here. I've got my Power Query window open, so I've got a blank workbook. I've done a quick search here just to show off one thing about the sharing and consumption experience, which Ofer did not include in his demo. So notice that I've searched for suppliers. Let me zoom in here real quick. So I've got both this public data, that we have federated into all of our Office 365 clients. I have organizational data, so notice we've got the different icons to identify these that both other users have shared, and I've got one that I've shared here. So if I come down and I mouse over this low-risk suppliers shared query, I can see both the columns in the preview, the stuff that Ofer has showed off. I can also see specifically who shared it. So as a business user, I often want to know, who is it who's sharing this data, so if I have questions, who do I go to? This is immediately shared. I also see the information about where the information is coming from, and I can hover over it and see the path to the shared folder. But I can also see a link to a documentation URL, and if I click on this, I can see information about the query, the processes that it was designed to be used in, and any supplemental information. We've seen data stewards both inside of Microsoft and with partner companies as well who are sharing documentation around their data sets because they've seen the cost in having data used incorrectly. Now, I'm going to come here into the Power Query tab, and instead of searching to see queries that are out there that are in the data catalog, I want to look specifically at queries that I have shared. So I've clicked on the Shared button up here on the Power Query ribbon, and now I can see all of the queries that I have shared explicitly, and it's a very similar view to what we have in Search. But the most significant thing is that I can, directly from here, choose to view statistics, to jump into that Manage Data portal. One of the things that Ofer pointed out here. So this is a query that I had shared earlier this morning, so we don't have significant usage around this, especially given that we're working with the Office 365 tenant used by the Power BI team. It's not getting a lot of day-to-day business usage. But I can view analytics for specific queries to see how they're being used. I can also come in and look at all of the queries that I have shared individually, or I can look at usage analytics for all of my queries as a whole, either over the last 30 days or for the last 24 hours, depending on the view that I want to see. But I can very easily come in and see which are the most popular queries, what are the usage patterns, and as I can see here as well, given the fact that these are all demo queries, I'm not getting a lot of traffic for people actually landing them in their workbooks, but for a real tenant, I would be able to see not only which queries are the most popular ones in search, which will allow me to identify opportunities for future curation, but also I can see which ones are actually being the most popular for usage and what users have been using them. I'm going to switch over here to the Data Sources tab as well. I did this on Ofer without letting him know what I was going to be doing here. So essentially, while Ofer was doing his first demo, I came in and I typed in this DE HD Insight string because I knew that this was the HD Insight cluster that he was using for his demo. And I chose Edit for this particular data source. And what I did was I provided a display name, a description, and perhaps the most important thing here, an approval URL, or in this case, an approval email address for this data source. So the first two, they're largely descriptive. You know, it's decorative information that will surface to the business users when they're searching or exploring through Power Query. This will help them better choose and better understand what they're finding. But this approver down at the bottom here, this is functional metadata that ideally we'll have provided by the data steward for each data source. One key thing to keep in mind is just because you can find a query in Power Query doesn't mean that you have permissions to run it. What it means is that you can find it, and when you land that query, Power Query will attempt to connect to that data source. If you don't have permissions, you'll be prompted for credentials, and at this point, many business users stop because they don't know how to proceed, and they might fall back and they might use an Excel copy of the data that they got from the guy down the hall instead of going against the authoritative source. Once this information, once this approver address has been provided, that connection dialog box will include a request access URL that the business user can click on to fire off an email to the person or to the team responsible for controlling access to that. You're probably imagining the DBA team that's inside your organization and how they want to control access to their data. So we want to make sure that business users can easily work with the DBA's processes and teams rather than being granted access to the data by the wrong people. So anything that I'm forgetting to mention here, Ofer?
No.
All right. So I'm